For centuries, we've been told that the Habsburg Empire was this austere, buttoned-up institution where archdukes spent their days signing documents with quills the size of peacocks and their knights, well, signing more documents. We picture them as walking portraits. Stiff, formal, about as exciting as watching paint dry on a particularly humid day in Vienna. The assumption has always been that scandal in the Habsburg court meant someone used the wrong fork at dinner or forgot to curtsy deeply enough to a third cousin twice removed. That assumption might be completely wrong. Tonight, you are Prince Ludwig Viktor of Austria, and it's 1864. You're the youngest brother of Emperor Franz Joseph I, which means you're basically Habsburg royalty with a capital R. You've got palaces, titles longer than most grocery lists, and enough gold braid on your uniform to outfit a small marching band. But here's the thing. You're also about to become the most scandalous member of a family that includes people who married their own nieces and collected human skulls as a hobby. You're gay, flamboyantly so, in an era when that could destroy empires. And you're about to spend the next 50 years proving that being yourself is worth more than all the imperial titles in the world. The evidence? Oh, the evidence is delicious. Police reports from the Vienna Central Bathhouse dated 1904 describe in bureaucratic detail how an imperial archduke was caught in what they delicately called compromising circumstances with a young officer. The officer's testimony, preserved in the Austrian state archives like the world's most awkward receipt, includes the phrase, His Imperial Highness, attempted to, well, let's just say the rest wouldn't make it past YouTube's content guidelines. Then there are the letters, hundreds of them, written in Ludwig Viktor's own hand, using code names and elaborate metaphors that fooled absolutely no one. My personal favourite refers to a certain count as, my dearest tulip who blooms only in moonlight, subtle as a sledgehammer wrapped in velvet. This discovery, made when historians finally got proper access to the Habsburg family archives in the 1990s, reveals something extraordinary about sexuality, scandal, and survival in one of Europe's most powerful dynasties. As we settle in tonight, we're going to uncover not just what historians found locked away in those archives, but what it tells us about the surprisingly relatable lives of people who lived in the glittering, gossipy, and gloriously hypocritical world of 19th century Vienna. But before we begin this journey together, write in the comments where you're listening from. It's fascinating to learn where in the world you are. Also, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. Now, dim the lights and prepare to discover why this story will change how you think about royal scandals. Chapter 1. The Archduke Who Refused to Marry. You're 22 years old in 1864 and your mother, Archduchess Sophie, has just presented you with portrait number 37 of yet another German princess she thinks would make a splendid wife. This one's from Bavaria, has teeth like a reasonably well-maintained fence, and comes with a dowry that could fund a small war. You smile, nod, and mentally file the portrait with the others in the fireplace, because while your brothers are dutifully producing Habsburg heirs like it's going out of style, you've discovered something rather inconvenient for a 19th century archduke. You're exclusively attracted to men. Now, being gay in 1864, Vienna isn't exactly illegal. The Habsburg Empire had actually decriminalized homosexuality back in 1787, making it weirdly more progressive than Britain, where Oscar Wilde would later discover that wit alone couldn't save you from Reading jail. But being gay and being an archduke, that's like being a vegan butcher or a teetotal brewmaster. Technically possible, but professionally awkward. Your official residence is the Palais Ludwig Viktor on the Schwarzenbergplatz, a baroque monstrosity with more rooms than you have servants to dust them. But you've turned it into something else entirely. Vienna's most exclusive salon for artists, actors, and what society newspapers delicately call bohemian elements. Your parties become legendary, not for their imperial grandeur, but for their theatrical excess. One guest, the actor Joseph Kynes, would later write in his memoirs that attending one of your soirées was like stepping into a world where the normal rules of society had been suspended and replaced with something far more interesting. The interesting part wasn't just the champagne that flowed like the Danube in flood season, or the fact that you'd hired the opera's costume department to outfit your footmen as Roman centurions. It was that your guest lists read like a who's who of Vienna's underground gay scene. There was Count Wilczek, who collected Arctic expeditions the way other people collected stamps, Baron von Suttner, who wrote poetry so purple it practically bruised the page, and your particular favourite, a Hungarian cavalry officer named Géza Matovics, whose moustache was so perfectly waxed it could have been used as an architectural support beam. Your brother, Emperor Franz Joseph, knows exactly what's going on. He's not stupid. You don't rule a multi-ethnic empire of 50 million people by missing obvious social cues. But he's got bigger problems than his baby brother's romantic preferences. There's that whole situation with his son Rudolf, who's showing alarming signs of liberal thinking. His wife Elizabeth spends more time travelling than a diplomatic courier, and someone needs to figure out what to do about Serbia before it becomes a real problem. So he adopts the traditional Habsburg solution to family embarrassment, aggressive ignorance combined with generous allowances. The allowances are important because you've developed expensive tastes, not just in the usual aristocratic way. Anyone can collect Fabergé eggs or commission portraits. No, you collect beautiful young men the way the British Museum collects artifacts from other cultures, enthusiastically and with questionable ethics. Your household staff consists entirely of strapping young fellows who've been selected less for their ability to polish silver and more for their to fill out livery in aesthetically pleasing ways. One of these young men, a footman named Karl Wimmer, would later sell his story to a scandal sheet after your death. He described how you'd personally oversee the hiring process, which involved what you called physical inspections to ensure candidates met the rigorous standards of imperial service. The standards apparently included minimum height requirements, maximum clothing requirements, and the ability to keep a straight face while you made increasingly inappropriate comments about their bearing. But here's where the story gets interesting, because despite what everyone assumes about gay men in the 19th century, you weren't some tragic figure hiding in the shadows. You were loud, proud, and about as subtle as a peacock at a penguin convention. You'd swan through the opera in capes that would make Liberace jealous, accompanied by your secretary, a position that seemed to require no actual secretarial skills, but did require being under 25 and over 6 feet tall. The Viennese newspapers couldn't print what they knew, but they became masters of insinuation. One society column from 1878 notes that His Imperial Highness Prince Ludwig Viktor attended last night's premiere of Don Giovanni, resplendent in purple velvet, and accompanied by his new aide-de-camp, a remarkably handsome young Croatian whose military talents have yet to be demonstrated on any actual battlefield. Chapter 2. The Bathhouse Incident That Changed Everything. Fast forward to 1904. You're 62 years old now, and Vienna has changed. Electric lights illuminate streets where gas lamps once flickered. Automobiles terrify horses on the Ringstrasse. And the central bathhouse. Oh, the central bathhouse has become your favourite haunt. It's marketed as a health establishment where respectable gentlemen can enjoy the benefits of steam and cold plunges for their constitution. What the advertisements don't mention is that after 10 p.m, it transforms into something else entirely. Picture this. Marble columns rising through clouds of steam, the sound of water echoing off mosaic tiles that cost more than most people's houses, and dozens of Vienna's most distinguished gentlemen wandering around in states of undress that would make a classical statue blush. It's basically a gay club, with better architecture and worse music. You've been coming here for years, and everyone knows it. The staff know it, the regulars know it, even the police know it. But you're an archduke, so everyone maintains this elaborate fiction that you're just really, really interested in the health benefits of hydrotherapy. On the night of January the 17th, 1904, you arrive at your usual time, around 11 p.m. Your carriage, because of course you still travel by carriage, automobiles are for people without style, pulls up to the discreet side entrance. You're wearing civilian clothes, which for you means only 3 medals instead of the usual dozen. The attendant, a discreetly well-paid man named Fritz, greets you with the usual deference and shows you to your regular changing room. What happens next depends on whose account you believe. According to the police report filed 3 hours later, you engaged in an altercation with another patron. According to the testimony of one witness, a banker named Herr Goldschmidt, you defended your honor against an unwarranted assault. According to the actual truth, pieced together from multiple sources, including your own letter to your nephew years later, you made a pass at the wrong person. The person in question was a young officer named Friedrich Haase. He was new to Vienna, new to the Bathhouse, and crucially, new to the concept that archdukes might proposition cavalry lieutenants in steam rooms. When you allegedly suggested activities that were anatomically ambitious, even by Bathhouse standards, Lieutenant Hayes reacted the way any self-respecting Prussian officer would. He punched you in the face. Now, getting punched in the face is embarrassing for anyone. Getting punched in the face when you're naked except for a towel that's seen better decades is worse. Getting punched in the face when you're a Habsburg Archduke and landing bottom first in a pool of cold water while your towel floats away like the last shred of your dignity. That's the kind of thing that ends up in history books, usually in the footnotes where the really juicy stuff lives. The bathhouse erupts into chaos. Half the patrons are trying to help you out of the pool, the other half are trying to pretend they're not there, and poor Lieutenant Hayes is standing there realizing he's just assaulted a member of the imperial family. The police arrive within minutes. Someone had the presence of mind to send for them, probably hoping to prevent you from challenging Hayes to a duel, which, given your military training consisted mainly of looking good on a horse, would not have ended well for anyone. The police commissioner who arrives is a man named Johann Brzezowski, and he faces a dilemma that they definitely didn't cover in Police Academy. On one hand, there's been an assault. On the other hand, the victim is an archduke who clearly doesn't want to explain why he was in a bathhouse at midnight, making suggestions that would make a sailor blush. On a third hand, if policemen had 3 hands, there's a room full of Vienna's most prominent citizens in various states of undress, all desperately trying to look like they're just really committed to personal hygiene. Commissioner Brzezowski makes the only sensible decision. He writes a report so vague it could mean anything, and hopes his superiors will deal with it. The report, preserved in the Vienna police archives, is a masterpiece of bureaucratic discretion. It mentions an incident involving a member of the imperial household and a misunderstanding between gentlemen that was resolved without further action required. Reading between the lines requires a magnifying glass and a degree in euphemism studies, but the damage is done. Within hours, every coffee house in Vienna is buzzing with the story. The official newspapers can't print it, but everyone knows. Your nephew, Crown Prince Franz Ferdinand, yes, that Franz Ferdinand, the one whose assassination would later spark World War I, is particularly mortified. He writes in his diary that evening, "Uncle Ludwig has finally managed to embarrass the family beyond even his usual capacity for scandal. Your brother, Emperor Franz Joseph, summons you to the Hofburg Palace the next morning. The meeting, according to court records, lasts exactly 12 minutes. When you emerge, you're no longer welcome in Vienna. Oh, it's not officially exile. Habsburg archdukes don't get exiled. They choose to reside elsewhere for the benefit of their health. Your health, apparently, requires immediate and permanent relocation to Schloss Klesheim, a palace near Salzburg that's about as far from Vienna's bathhouses as you can get, while still technically being in Austria." Chapter 3. Palace Arrest and the Art of Defiant Living. So, here you are in 1905, rattling around Schloss Klesheim like a particularly well-dressed ghost. The palace is beautiful, don't get me wrong. Baroque architecture, stunning gardens, views of the Alps that would make Julie Andrews burst into song. But it's also essentially a gilded cage, and you're the exotic bird the family wants to keep out of public view. Your daily routine would drive anyone to madness. You wake at noon, because what's the point of getting up earlier when your most pressing appointment is arguing with your gardener about rose varieties? Breakfast is served in the blue salon, which you've redecorated in what can only be described as aggressive rococo. Every surface that could possibly hold a cherub now does, and you've commissioned mirrors specifically to reflect other mirrors, creating an infinite regression of your own fabulous imprisonment. The locals in Salzburg don't quite know what to make of you. Here's this Archduke who dresses like he's permanently on his way to a costume ball, speaks in a Viennese accent so refined it could cut glass, and has turned the local economy into his personal employment agency for handsome young men. The position of footman at Schloss Klesheim becomes the most sought-after job in the region, despite rumours that the actual duties are somewhat unconventional. Your household staff at this point reads like casting notes for a very specific type of theatrical production. There's Johann, your valet, a former dancer from the Prague Opera, whose primary qualification seems to be his ability to wear knee breeches without irony. There's Miguel, a Spanish gardener, who's never been seen holding a trowel but has been seen holding your hand during evening walks. And there's your secretary Franz, whose secretarial duties consist mainly of taking dictation while shirtless because you claim the room is insufferably warm, even in January. The letters you write during this period are extraordinary documents. They're preserved in the Habsburg family archives, and reading them is like watching someone slowly lose their grip on conventional reality while maintaining perfect penmanship. To your sister-in-law, Empress Elizabeth, you write, "Dearest Cece, the roses here bloom with such enthusiasm one might think they're compensating for something. Rather like the local priest, who insists on visiting weekly to save my soul. I've told him it's beyond salvation, but he seems to view this as a challenge rather than a fact." To your nephew Karl, you're even more candid. "My dear boy, they tell me I'm here for my health. If boredom is healthy, I shall live forever. Send books, send wine, send anyone under 30 with a pulse and a willingness to discuss absolutely anything besides the weather." But here's the thing about you that makes this story more than just a tale of aristocratic eccentricity. You're actually brilliant, not just educated, which all Habsburg archdukes were, but genuinely, frustratingly intelligent. You speak 7 languages fluently, you've read everything from Plato to Darwin, and you have opinions about modern art that would actually prove remarkably prescient. You correspond with artists and writers across Europe, and your letters show a mind that's trapped not just by geography, but by the accident of being born into a role that never fit. In 1908, you commission a young artist named Egon Schiele to paint your portrait. Schiele, who's about as conventional as you are, arrives at Klesheim and immediately understands the assignment. The portrait he creates, which now hangs in the Belvedere Museum in Vienna, shows you not as an archduke, but as a human being. The melancholy in your eyes could fill the Danube, but there's also defiance there, a refusal to apologize for who you are even as you pay the price for it. Your days develop a routine that's part performance art, part psychological survival mechanism. Morning, argue with your cook about menu choices that no one but you will eat. Afternoon, take walks in the garden while dictating memoirs you'll never publish to Franz, who's learned to write backwards so you can read his transcription in the mirror while having your hair dressed. Evening, host dinner parties for an increasingly eclectic mix of local nobility who come for the scandal and stay for the genuinely excellent wine cellar. One of these dinner guests, Countess Marie Lavish, would later write in her memoirs about an evening at Klesheim in 1910. The Archduke appeared in a purple velvet jacket with diamond buttons, looking like a Byzantine emperor who'd been exiled to the provinces. He spoke brilliantly about everything from Serbian poetry to the mating habits of peacocks, which he kept in alarming numbers, and one couldn't help but think what he might have accomplished if he'd been born anyone else. The peacocks deserve their own mention. You've collected dozens of them, and they roam the grounds like feathered security guards, screaming at visitors and destroying the formal gardens with magnificent indifference. When asked why you keep them, you reply, "They're the only creatures here more dramatic than I am." One must have standards. Chapter 4. The Emperor's Death and Your Final Gambit. November 21st, 1916. Your brother, Franz Joseph, dies after 68 years on the throne, probably from the sheer exhaustion of keeping the Habsburg Empire from imploding through pure willpower and impressive facial hair. You're 74 years old, you've been in exile for 12 years, and suddenly you realize the person who exiled you is dead. Your new nephew, Emperor Karl I, not the Karl you wrote those letters to, that's a different Karl, because Habsburg family trees have the fewer branches than a Charlie Brown Christmas special, is young, desperate, and facing a war that's going about as well as your attempts at heterosexuality. You see an opportunity. The letter you write to Karl I is preserved in the Austrian state archives, and it's a masterpiece of aristocratic passive aggression. Your Majesty, you begin, using the formal address despite being his great-uncle. I wish to express my deepest condolences on the passing of my beloved brother and your predecessor. As the last surviving brother of Franz Joseph, I humbly request permission to return to Vienna to pay my respects and perhaps offer what wisdom my many years might provide to your Majesty's glorious reign. What you're actually saying is, listen here, Junior, I've been stuck in Salzburg for over a decade because your great-uncle couldn't handle a little scandal. Now he's dead, you're losing a war, and I'd like to come home before I die in this Rococo nightmare of my own making. Karl I, who has bigger problems, like the fact that the empire is literally falling apart and people have started shooting at archdukes with alarming accuracy, grants your request. In December 1916, you return to Vienna for the first time since the Bathhouse incident. The city you return to is not the one you left. The coffee houses that once buzzed with gossip now discuss revolution. The opera still performs, but half the audience is in mourning black and the other half can't afford tickets. Your own palace on Schwarzenbergplatz has been converted into a military hospital, and your beautiful ballroom, where centurion-dressed footmen once served champagne, now houses rows of beds filled with men missing pieces of themselves. You take a suite at the Hotel Imperial, because even in wartime you maintain certain standards. The staff, many of whom remember you from the old days, treat you with a mixture of deference and barely concealed fascination. You're like a relic from a more glamorous age, a reminder that once upon a time, Vienna's biggest scandal was an archduke who liked men, not an empire that was eating itself alive. The memoir fragments you write during this period, never published but preserved in your personal papers, are remarkably clear-eyed about what's happening. The empire dies not with a bang, but with paperwork. Every day another province declares independence, and Karl signs the documents with the same pen our ancestors used to sign marriage contracts with their cousins. There's a certain poetic justice in it all. You attend Franz Joseph's memorial service at the Kapuzinergruft, the imperial crypt where Habsburg bodies are stored like very expensive wine. You're wearing your full military uniform for the first time in over a decade, and the weight of all those medals, earned for nothing more than being born into the right family, feels like wearing your own obituary. After the service, you're approached by a young officer who clearly doesn't recognize you. He asks if you served with Franz Joseph. You look at him. This boy, who's maybe 20, who's been fighting a war that makes no sense for an empire that barely exists. And you say, I served under him. We all did, one way or another. It's the closest you'll ever come to profundity. But Vienna in 1917 is no place for aging archdukes, scandalous or otherwise. The Spanish flu arrives like an unwelcome relative. The food shortages mean that even your money can't buy what doesn't exist. And revolution is in the air like perfume at one of your old parties. Karl I strongly suggests, which is emperor speak for commands, that you return to Salzburg for your health. This time, you know it's permanent. As your train pulls out of Vienna's Westbahnhof, you write in your diary, "Farewell to the city that made me and destroyed me in equal measure. I shall not see it again, but then again, the Vienna I knew died long before I shall." Chapter 5. The Revolution That Nobody Saw Coming. 1918 arrives like a drunk guest at a funeral, loud, inappropriate, and impossible to ignore. The war ends not with victory or defeat, but with exhaustion, like a fight between elderly relatives that stops only because everyone needs a nap. On November 11th, Karl I signs away an empire that's existed for 600 years, and suddenly you're not an archduke anymore. You're just Ludwig Habsburg Lothringen, private citizen, which is like being demoted from deity to mortal without anyone asking your opinion. The new Austrian Republic has about as much sympathy for dispossessed aristocrats as you have for badly dressed people, which is to say, none whatsoever. the law concerning the expulsion and the takeover of the assets of the House of Habsburg-Lothringen. And yes, that's the actual name, because apparently the new government believes in titles almost as long as your old ones, means you're now officially persona non grata in Austria. But here's the beautiful irony. You're already in exile, so being exiled from your exile is like being fired from a job you quit 12 years ago. Schloss Klesheim is confiscated by the state, but they allow you to take your personal belongings, which in your case means 17 trunks of clothing, a suspicious number of male nude sculptures, and your beloved peacocks, who are probably the only ones genuinely sad to see you go. You relocate to a modest villa in Hütteldorf, just outside Vienna. Technically outside the city limits, so you're not violating your exile, but close enough that on clear days you can see the spires of St. Stephen's Cathedral, taunting you with their proximity. The villa is, by your standards, practically a hovel. Only 12 rooms, 1 ballroom and a garden barely large enough for a dozen peacocks. You name it Villa Melancholia, because subtlety was never your strong suit. Your financial situation is interesting. The Republic has frozen your official assets, but you've spent 76 years being a Habsburg, which means you've got money hidden in places that haven't even been invented yet. Swiss bank accounts, art collections on loan to museums that somehow never ask for them back, and a network of former servants who are remarkably good at converting golden candlesticks into cash without asking uncomfortable questions. The locals in Hütteldorf don't quite know what to do with you. You're simultaneously the most exciting and most problematic thing to happen to their village since someone accidentally built the church facing the wrong direction in 1743. On one hand, you employ half the young men in the village in various capacities that everyone politely doesn't examine too closely. On the other hand, you insist on taking daily walks in full court dress, complete with medals from an empire that no longer exists, which is either heartbreaking or hilarious depending on your perspective. Your correspondence during this period becomes increasingly unhinged in the most delightful way. To your nephew Felix, who somehow ended up in Switzerland with most of the family jewellery, you write, "My dear boy, I've discovered that being a private citizen means one must actually pay taxes. The very concept is so foreign I've had to have it explained 3 times, and I'm still not convinced it isn't an elaborate prank." To your former secretary Franz, who's somehow still in your employment despite the fact that you can barely afford groceries, you dictate, "History will remember Franz Joseph as the emperor who held the empire together. They'll remember Karl as the emperor who let it fall apart. They'll remember me as the one who got caught with his pants down, literally. And honestly, I'm rather proud of that." The Spanish flu arrives in Hütteldorf in early 1919, and your household becomes a bizarre sanitarium. You insist everyone wear masks, not because you understand germ theory, but because you think they make everyone look mysteriously attractive. You have Franz read medical journals aloud while you take your daily bath, and you become convinced that the cure for influenza is champagne mixed with quinine, which you prescribe liberally to everyone including the peacocks. Miraculously, no one in your household dies from the flu, though whether this is due to your champagne cure or pure luck remains unclear. You celebrate by throwing what you call a survival soirée, which consists of you, Franz, the gardener Miguel, who's still there despite there being barely any garden to tend, and 2 local boys you've hired as footmen who spend most of their time playing cards and looking decorative. It's at this party, according to Franz's later testimony, that you make your famous toast. "Gentlemen, we have survived war, revolution, exile, and influenza. We have lost an empire, a fortune, and most of our dignity. But we still have champagne, we still have each other, and most importantly, we still have better taste than the Republicans." To survival. Chapter 6. The Archduke's Last Waltz. January 18th, 1919. You wake up with what you assume is a hangover from last night's Thursday as practically Friday celebration, but by noon it's clear this is something else. The doctor, a young man who clearly took the job because he needed the money and stays because your stories are better than anything in the medical journals, diagnoses pneumonia. You're 76 years old, your lungs sound like a coffee percolator, and you're running a fever that could power a small steam engine. But you're also a Habsburg, And Habsburgs don't go quietly into that good night. They go with style, drama, and if possible, a witty last word. You insist on being moved to your best bedroom, the one with the view of Vienna in the distance. France sets up a desk beside your bed so you can continue your correspondence, because dying is no excuse for poor manners. Your letters from these final days are preserved in various archives, and they're simultaneously heartbreaking and hilarious. To the young officer Friedrich Hase, the one who punched you in the bathhouse 15 years ago, you write, "My dear lieutenant," or whatever rank you've achieved by now, "I feel I should apologise for that evening in 1904, not for what I suggested," which, in retrospect, was anatomically optimistic, but for not ducking. A Habsburg should always maintain dignity, even when being punched. I hope life has treated you more kindly than you treated my nose. To your great-nephew Otto, who would later become the last Crown Prince of Austria-Hungary, you offer advice. "My dear boy, they'll tell you many things about how to be a Habsburg. Ignore most of it. The only things that matter are these. Always overdress. Never apologise for who you are. And remember that exile is just another word for freedom if you're creative enough." On January 19th, your fever breaks temporarily, and you experience that cruel moment of clarity that sometimes comes before the end. You call Franz to your bedside and dictate what you call your final testament, though it's less a legal document and more a philosophical treatise on the absurdity of aristocracy. I, Ludwig Viktor, Archduke of Nothing, Prince of Nowhere, leave to the world the following. To the new Republic of Austria, I leave my peacocks. May they shit on your gardens with the same enthusiasm they showed for mine. To my family, scattered across Europe like dandelion seeds in a hurricane, I leave the burden of our history and the suggestion that maybe, just maybe, marrying your cousins for 6 centuries wasn't the best idea. To the young men of Vienna, I leave my apologies for being born too early and too noble to love you properly. And to history, I leave this truth. I lived as myself, in a world that demanded I be someone else, and that, my dear ones, is the only victory worth claiming. The doctor increases your morphine dose on the evening of January 19th. You spend your last conscious hours telling Franz stories about the old Vienna, the one where the biggest scandal was who was sleeping with whom, not who was shooting whom. You describe the opera on opening night, when the gaslights made everyone look like golden gods and the music was so beautiful it could make even a Habsburg cry. Your last coherent words, according to Franz, are, "You know, I rather enjoyed it all. Even the exile, especially the exile. Tell them I regret nothing except the things I didn't do." You die at 3:47 a.m. on January 20th, 1919. Franz closes your eyes, Miguel picks peacock feathers for your coffin, and the 2 footmen, who've become genuinely fond of you despite everything, stand guard over your body like the honour guard you would have had if the Empire still existed. The funeral is a modest affair. The Republic won't allow a state funeral, and most of your family is either in exile or pretending you never existed. But word spreads through certain circles in Vienna, and on January the 23rd, when your coffin processes through the streets of Hütteldorf toward the local cemetery, something remarkable happens. They come out of their shops and houses, the men you loved, the ones you employed, the ones who remembered you from the bathhouse, from the opera, from a Vienna that doesn't exist anymore. Florists, actors, cavalry officers in civilian clothes, artists with paint still under their fingernails. They don't march or make speeches. They just stand there, silent as your coffin passes. It's not an official honour guard, but it's yours. The priest, who's known about you all along but taken your money anyway because even God's servants have bills to pay, gives a eulogy that manages to be both appropriate and honest. Ludwig Viktor lived in a world that demanded conformity and chose instead to be himself. Whether that was courage or foolishness, only God can judge. But, in a world rapidly losing its colour, he remained vivid until the end. You're buried in a simple grave in Hütteldorf Cemetery. The headstone, paid for with the last of your hidden funds, reads simply, Ludwig Viktor, 1842 to 1919, he lived as he chose. Within a week, someone, Franz never admits it was him, but who else would it be, plants purple irises around your grave. Purple, because of course. The peacocks, inherited by the Republic, are relocated to Schönbrunn Palace, where they terrorize tourists to this day. Sometimes the tour guides tell the story of the Archduke who collected them, though the official version leaves out the best parts. But on quiet mornings, when the mist rises from the gardens and the peacocks scream their prehistoric songs, you can almost imagine you're still there, walking the grounds in your purple velvet, refusing to apologize for anything. Your personal papers are sealed in the Austrian state archives for 50 years, officially for reasons of state security, actually because no one quite knows what to do with the correspondence of a gay archduke who spent his last years in exile, writing increasingly unhinged letters about everything from the proper way to seduce a cavalry officer to his theory that the Habsburgs fell because they stopped appreciating good tailoring. When the archives finally open in 1969, historians discover something unexpected. You were one of the most prolific correspondents of your era. Over 3,000 letters, documenting not just your own life but the entire hidden history of gay Vienna. Names, places, codes and connections that reveal an entire underground world that existed parallel to the official Habsburg Empire. You weren't just living your scandal, you were documenting everyone else's too. Modern historians have re-evaluated your life, and the consensus is both kinder and more complex than your contemporaries could have imagined. Yes, you were scandalous, excessive, and probably insufferable at dinner parties, but you were also brave in a way that most people never have to be. You refused to live a lie even when the truth cost you everything. You created spaces where men like you could exist, even if only for an evening. And you left us a record of what it was like to be magnificently, unapologetically yourself in a world that demanded you be anything but. As our journey through the scandalous life and tragic exile of Prince Ludwig Viktor of Austria concludes tonight, we're reminded that the past is far from dusty and dull. It's a vibrant, often surprising, and always intriguing tapestry, woven with human ingenuity, resilience, and the occasional ancient mystery that still makes us wonder. Until our next archaeological adventure together, this is the Sleeping Archaeologist, encouraging you to remain curious about the incredible tales still waiting to be discovered beneath our feet. Sweet dreams, fellow explorers. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and may your rest be filled with wonder at the remarkable tapestry of human history. But for now, stay tuned, as we have a bonus story coming right up, read especially for you by our guest narrator.
Hello, good evening, thanks for having me. Our next story is entitled Your Medieval Wedding Night, Less Fairy Tale, More Hostile Takeover. When you think of a medieval wedding, your brain probably defaults to a very specific, very clean, and very romanticized image, likely curated by decades of Disney movies and fantasy novels. You picture a princess in a shimmering gown, a dashing knight with impossibly white teeth, and a ceremony filled with heartfelt vows about eternal love. The whole affair culminates in a chaste, magical kiss as the sun sets over a glistening castle. It's a beautiful thought, it's a comforting narrative, it's also, for the most part, complete and utter nonsense. The reality of a noble wedding in the Middle Ages had less to do with romance and more to do with a modern corporate merger, complete with lawyers, binding contracts, and a tense board meeting where the assets of both families are laid bare. The bride and groom were less like star-crossed lovers and more like the living embodiment of a joint venture agreement. Their union wasn't about personal happiness, it was about consolidating power, acquiring land, and ending a pesky border dispute that had been a real drag on agricultural output for the last 2 generations. Love was a rare and unexpected bonus, like finding out the company you just acquired has a surprisingly good dental plan. The entire event was a cold, hard, strategic transaction. Tonight, you are at the very center of one such transaction. The year is 1250. You are in the north of England in a stone fortress that has smelled vaguely of damp dog and wood smoke for 300 years. You are 14 years old and you are the daughter of a powerful baron. And today is your wedding day, a day that will secure your father's borderlands and bring your new husband a dowry substantial enough to fund a small war. You are not a princess finding her prince. You are a living, breathing peace treaty. And the ceremony that is about to unfold is less a celebration and more a public ratification of a contract you had no hand in writing. The ultimate proof of this, the cold, hard receipts of your reality, aren't found in a love poem or a diary. They're found in the marriage charters that have survived the centuries. These aren't romantic scrolls. They are stark legal documents written in dense Latin on stiff animal parchment. Imagine a modern prenuptial agreement, but instead of specifying who gets the condo in Aspen, it lists villages, forests, grazing rights for 500 sheep, and the precise number of armored knights your family must provide in case of rebellion. The seals of your two families are stamped in wax at the bottom, not as a symbol of love, but as the legally binding signatures on a business deal. These charters are the archaeological evidence that your marriage was, first and foremost, an exchange of property, and you were the most valuable asset being transferred. This discovery, made possible through the careful preservation of legal documents and estate records from medieval England, reveals something extraordinary about the brutal pragmatism of dynastic survival. As we settle in tonight, we're going to uncover not just what archaeologists and historians found, but what it tells us about the surprisingly relatable, if terrifying, lives of people who lived in a world dictated by land, lineage, and law. Now dim the lights and prepare to discover why this story will change how you think about saying, "I do." You wake up not to the gentle rays of dawn through a stained glass window, but to the familiar, bone-deep chill of a northern English morning. Your bedchamber is a small room, little more than a stone box adjoining your parents' larger solar. The air is cold enough to see your breath, a pale ghost in the gloom. There is one window, a narrow slit in the stone wall designed more for firing arrows out of than for letting light in. It offers a sliver of grey, washed-out sky. This is it. The day. You've known it was coming for 6 months, ever since your father concluded negotiations with the Baron from the next valley over. You've met your future husband exactly once. He came to your father's castle for a feast to finalize the terms. You remember him being tall, broad, and much older than you, maybe 30? It was hard to tell. His beard was thick, his hands were calloused, and he had a scar that cut through his left eyebrow. He looked at you the way a man might inspect a horse he was considering buying, a quick, assessing glance, checking for soundness and good breeding stock. He said perhaps 5 words to you directly, something mumbled about the journey being rough. You spent the entire feast sitting beside him in near silence, a small, still object amidst the roar of men drinking and boasting. Your primary job was to look healthy, docile, and capable of producing sons. It seems you passed the inspection. Your maids enter, their movements brisk and efficient, their chatter a low hum that does little to warm the room. They are not here to soothe your nerves or to speak of love and happiness. They are here to assemble you. Their conversation revolves around practicalities, the weather, the number of guests who have arrived, and most importantly, the breathtaking value of the clothes you are about to wear. Your wedding gown is not a symbol of purity. It is a walking billboard advertising your family's wealth and status. It is a critical component of the transaction. A weak-looking dowry represented by cheap fabric or shoddy embroidery could signal a weak alliance. And weakness in this world is an invitation to disaster. They help you into the first layer, a chemise of fine linen. It feels shockingly cold against your skin. Over that comes the kirtle, a long, fitted gown of deep blue wool, so richly dyed it's almost black. The wool is heavy, substantial, and more than a little scratchy. The sleeves are tight on your forearms, buttoned from elbow to wrist with a series of tiny, handcrafted silver buttons, each one a minuscule dot of wealth. This isn't an outfit designed for comfort. It's designed to be impressive, to withstand the chill of the Great Hall, and to last for years. Fashion is a slow, ponderous beast in your time. This gown is an investment meant to be worn for decades on formal occasions, perhaps even passed down. There's a certain grim practicality to it all. No one has time for disposable sentimentality. Over the kirtle goes the super tunic, a looser outer gown of even more luxurious fabric. It's a heavy silk brocade, the color of burgundy wine, woven with golden threads that form repeating patterns of stylized lions. Your family's crest. The fabric was purchased from a traveling merchant who got it in Flanders, who in turn got it from a trader in Venice, who bought it from someone who had sailed the Silk Road. The journey this fabric has taken to reach your shoulders is a testament to your father's influence and reach. As they cinch a heavy gilded leather belt around your waist, you feel the sheer weight of it all pressing down on you. You are being packaged. You are the dowry-made flesh. Your hair is the final piece. They unbraid the long plait you sleep in and begin to comb it out. It falls to your waist, a sign of your youth and unmarried status. Today, for the last time, you will wear it down, loose and flowing, covered only by a simple circlet of gold on your brow. After today, it will be your duty as a wife to bind it up, to cover it, to signal to the world that you are no longer a maiden. You are property, duly transferred. As the cold metal of the circlet settles on your forehead, you catch your reflection in a polished disc of silver that serves as a mirror. The girl staring back looks pale, her eyes wide. She looks like a stranger, a painted doll being prepared for display. There is no joy in her expression, only a quiet, resolute numbness. The time for girlish feelings is over. Today, you become a baroness. And you have a job to do. Your father is counting on it. Your entire family is counting on it. The pressure is immense, a physical weight as real as the silk brocade on your shoulders, and you know with a certainty that chills you even more than the morning air that you cannot afford to fail. The ceremony is only the beginning. The walk to the chapel is not a procession of joy, but a public audit. Your father, his hand gripping your arm with a firmness that feels more like ownership than fatherly affection, leads you across the bailey. The castle is swarming with people, not just your family and the groom's retinue, but your father's knights, his men-at-arms, his tenants, and a whole host of local villagers who have come to witness the event. Their eyes are on you, but they are not looking at you with warmth. They are calculating. The women assess the quality of your gown, whispering to each other about the cost of the silk, the fineness of the embroidery. The men are looking at you with a different kind of appraisal. They see the daughter of a baron, the future mother of heirs. They see fertile land, a strategic alliance, a consolidation of power that will make their own lives more secure. You are a symbol of stability. Your healthy appearance is a reassurance that this political bargain is a sound one, likely to yield the desired dividend, a male heir to continue the line and inherit the land. You feel less like a bride and more like a prize mare being paraded around the auction ring. You don't go inside the chapel for the wedding. That's a common misconception, a detail smoothed over by future storytellers. The sacrament of marriage in your time and place is a public, legal proceeding that takes place outside on the church porch, ad ostium ecclesia, at the door of the church. It has to be public. There must be witnesses, dozens of them, to hear the vows and see the exchange of property. This is not an intimate moment between two people. It is a community event a binding legal contract that affects everyone from the highest lord to the lowliest farmer. A marriage shrouded in secrecy is a marriage that can be disputed later, a loophole that a rival could exploit to question the legitimacy of your children and their claim to the lands. So you stand there in the cold, before the heavy oak doors of the chapel, with the entire world as your witness. Your groom is waiting. He stands tall, flanked by his own father and brothers. They are hard-faced men, their expressions unreadable. They look like what they are, warriors and landowners, men who have held their territory through strength and shrewd negotiation. Your husband-to-be is dressed as richly as you are, in a tunic of dark green velvet trimmed with fur. A heavy sword hangs at his hip, a constant reminder of the world you live in, a world where disputes are settled with steel just as often as with parchment and wax. He turns his head as you approach, and his eyes meet yours for a fleeting second. There is no warmth in them, no smile. There is only a look of stern duty. He is fulfilling his obligation, just as you are. The priest begins the ceremony. He's a stout man whose Latin is heavily accented by the local dialect. You understand some of it, the familiar words of the liturgy, but much of it washes over you, a monotonous drone against the backdrop of the wind whistling through the castle walls. The core of the ceremony is not the flowery language of love, but the stark language of contract law. Your father speaks first, formally announcing the dowry. He lists the assets: 2 manors on the western border, a tract of forest rich with game, grazing rights for 1,000 sheep, and a payment of 100 silver marks. It's all spoken aloud for everyone to hear. It is being entered into the public record. Then your groom's father responds, announcing the dower, the property your husband will settle on you, which will be yours to live on should you outlive him. It's a small estate, a single manor house with a few attached fields. It's a provision for your security, but also a stark reminder of your status. You are a temporary vessel for your husband's lineage. Your value is in your womb, and this dower is your pension plan, should you successfully complete your duties and then have the good fortune or misfortune to become a widow. Finally, it's your turn. The priest asks you the formal questions. Do you take this man to be your husband? Your voice is a small thing in the open air, but you say the words you have been coached to say. I do. It's not a question of want. Consent in your world is not about personal desire. It's about your family's agreement. Your father consented for you, and that is all the consent the church and the law require. Your husband-to-be recites his vows in a clear, strong voice. He places a simple gold band on your finger. His hand is rough and calloused, the hand of a man who wields a sword and holds the reins of a warhorse. It engulfs your own. The ring feels heavy, a cold manacle, and just like that, it's done. The priest gives a final blessing. Your father formally places your hand in your husband's. The transfer is complete. A few of the onlookers manage a ragged cheer. Your husband leans in, and for a terrifying moment, you think he is going to kiss you, but he only murmurs something in your ear. A curt instruction. Smile! They are watching! You try to obey, to stretch your lips into a shape that might pass for happiness. The public part, the legal part, was over. Now came the feast, a brief and noisy reprieve before the true test, the part of the day that loomed in your mind with a silent, formless dread. You had no idea that the most public part of your wedding was yet to come. The Great Hall is a cavern of noise, heat, and smell. Long trestle tables have been set up, crammed with guests. The air is thick with the smoke from the central hearth and the dozens of torches burning in sconces on the stone walls. It smells of roasting meat, spilled ale, wet wool, and the press of too many unwashed bodies in an enclosed space. This is the celebration. It is loud, chaotic, and profoundly public. You are led to the high table, a raised platform at one end of the hall where you sit on display like a holy relic. You are seated between your new husband and your father. The two men speak to each other over you, their voices loud to be heard above the din. They are not talking about you or your future. They are talking about politics, about the king's latest tax levy, about a rebellious Welsh prince, about the price of wool. You are the living bridge between their two families, and they are busy conducting traffic across you. Servants begin to bring the food. There are no individual plates. Food is served on large platters, and you eat from a shared trencher, a thick slab of stale bread, with the person next to you. You are sharing a trencher with your husband. It's supposed to be a symbol of your new union, but it just feels awkward. He tears off a piece of roasted capon with his fingers and places it on the trencher. He gestures for you to eat. You pick at it with your fingers, your appetite completely gone, a knot of anxiety tightening in your stomach. The meal is a lavish display of your father's wealth. There is venison, swan, peacock, redressed in its own feathers, meat pies and custards. Wine and ale flow freely, poured from huge ceramic jugs. The more the guests drink, the louder the hall becomes. A minstrel with a lute is trying to sing a ballad about a heroic knight, but his voice is mostly lost in the cacophony. You look down the long tables at the sea of faces, knights, squires, visiting lords and their wives. Everyone is eating with gusto, their chins greasy, their voices raised in laughter and argument. You feel utterly detached from it all, an observer at your own life-altering event. The women at the high table, your mother and your new mother-in-law, chat politely. They speak of household matters, of managing servants and storing provisions for the winter. This is your future. This is the world you now inhabit, a world of domestic management and dynastic duty. The conversation is a closed loop of practicality. No one speaks of hopes or dreams. They speak of yields, inventories, and bloodlines. Your husband turns to you once, his breath smelling of wine. "You are not eating," he observes. It is not a question born of concern, but a statement of fact. You murmur something about being overwhelmed. He gives a short, sharp nod, as if accepting a report from a subordinate, and then turns back to his conversation with your father. There is no attempt at intimacy, no gentle reassurance. Why would there be? This is not a partnership of equals built on mutual affection. He is your Lord and Master by law of God and man. Your role is to obey, to manage his household, and, above all, to provide him with a legitimate heir. Your feelings are irrelevant to the successful execution of your duties. As the hours wear on, the feast grows rowdier. Some of the men are drunk now, their laughter coarser, their jokes cruder. And you know with a sickening certainty what they are all waiting for. It's the grand finale of the evening's entertainment. The part of the wedding that is both a solemn ritual and a piece of bawdy public theatre. The bedding ceremony. It's not enough that you are legally married in the eyes of the church. It's not enough that the contracts have been signed and the dowry announced. The marriage is not truly irrevocably sealed until it has been consummated. And in this world, that consummation requires witnesses, not for the act itself, thankfully, but for everything leading up to it. The public needs proof that the bride was delivered to the groom's bed to ensure the union is official and any resulting children are undeniably legitimate. You see your mother-in-law catch the eye of your own mother. A subtle nod is exchanged. The time has come. A group of women, your female relatives and his, rise from the table and approach you. Their faces are a mixture of forced cheerfulness and pity. They are here to escort you to the bedchamber. As you rise on shaky legs, a cheer goes up from the men at the tables. They raise their goblets, their jokes growing louder and more pointed. It feels like a violation, a stripping away of the last shred of your privacy. You are no longer a person. You are a vessel being led to the place where your ultimate purpose will be fulfilled. The torchlight flickers, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The noise of the great hall begins to fade behind you as you are led down a short, cold corridor. But the real ordeal, the silent, terrifying heart of your wedding day, is just about to begin. The bedchamber is not a private sanctuary. It's the main solar, the family's private living quarters, right next to the great hall. It's a large room, dominated by a massive wooden bed. This is the most expensive piece of furniture in the entire castle. It's a four-poster, hung with heavy woolen curtains for warmth and a sliver of privacy. A fire crackles in the hearth, but it does little to dispel the oppressive sense of being on a stage. The room is full of people. Your female relatives are here, and so are your husband's closest male kin, his father, his brothers, along with the priest. It's a crowded, almost claustrophobic scene. The women surround you, helping you out of your heavy wedding gown. Their movements are practiced, efficient. They undress you down to your linen chemise, their hands cold on your skin. They are chattering, making lewd jokes, meant to put you at ease, but which only heighten your sense of humiliation. It's a ritual they have all been through themselves. This is simply what is done. It is the way of the world. They braid your hair, a practical measure, and then lead you to the bed. The mattress is stuffed with feathers, a rare luxury, but it gives you no comfort. You climb in, pulling the sheets up to your chin, your heart hammering against your ribs. Then it's the groom's turn. He enters the room, escorted by the men. They are laughing, clapping him on the back, offering him crude advice. Their presence feels like a physical assault. They help him out of his formal tunic and boots, leaving him in his own linen undergarments. The priest steps forward, holding a small container of holy water. He circles the bed, murmuring a blessing in Latin, sprinkling water onto the sheets. He is blessing the marriage bed, praying for it to be fruitful. He is sanctifying the act that is about to take place, framing it not as a moment of intimacy, but as a sacred duty for the procreation of heirs. Then, with a final round of laughter and a few more bawdy jests, they finally begin to file out. Your father-in-law is the last to leave. He gives his son a stern, meaningful look, a look that says, "Do your duty, get this done." The door closes, but you know they are not far. They are likely just outside in the corridor, waiting for the marriage to be legally and physically sealed. The sudden silence in the room is deafening. It's just you and him, this stranger, this man who owns you. He stands by the fire for a moment, his broad back to you. The only sounds are the crackling of the logs and the frantic beating of your own heart. He turns and walks to the bed. He moves with a heavy, deliberate slowness. You can't read his expression in the flickering firelight. He pulls back the covers and gets in beside you. The weight of his body makes the mattress sag. He is so much larger than you, radiating a heat that feels menacing rather than comforting. You lie there, rigid, staring up at the wooden canopy of the bed, which is lost in shadow. You feel like a trapped animal. You are 14 years old. You are in a strange castle, in a bed with a man you do not know, and you are about to perform the most intimate act of your life as a legal and public duty. There are no words of tenderness. There is no gentle touch. This is not about pleasure or connection or even affection. It is a physical consummation required to validate a contract. It is the final seal on the deed of transfer. He is methodical, efficient. He knows what is required of him, and he does it. You close your eyes and retreat into some small, protected corner of your mind. You focus on the rough texture of the linen sheets, the smell of wood smoke, the distant muffled sound of a dog barking in the courtyard below. You endure it. You do your duty. It is what you were born for. It is the price of your name, your land, your existence. In the cold, silent darkness of your wedding chamber, the deal is finally, irrevocably closed. There is no romance here. There is only the grim, silent finality of a contract fulfilled. Your childhood is over. A new, uncertain life has begun. You drift in and out of a shallow, uneasy sleep. The fire in the hearth dies down to glowing embers, and the room grows colder. At some point, your husband begins to snore, a low, rumbling sound beside you. It's the most human, most vulnerable sound you've heard him make, but it brings you no comfort. It only emphasizes his alien presence in the bed beside you. You lie awake, staring into the darkness, feeling a profound and hollow loneliness. This is your life now. Waking, sleeping, and living alongside a stranger to whom you are legally bound, your body and your future sworn to his service. The first grey light of dawn finally seeps through the window slit. It is the morning after. With the light comes the sound of movement outside the door. You tense, knowing what is coming. The door creaks open and a group of women enter. It's your new mother-in-law, your own mother, and a few other high-ranking ladies of the household. They approach the bed not with gentle morning greetings, but with a determined, clinical purpose. Your husband is already awake, and he gets out of bed without a word, pulling on his clothes. He does not look at you. His part in this morning's ritual is done. The women's eyes are all on the bedsheets. Your mother-in-law pulls back the covers, her face a mask of stern neutrality. They are looking for the tokens of virginity, the blood that proves you were a virgin, and that the marriage has been consummated. The legitimacy of any heir you produce depends on this public confirmation. If there were no proof, it could cast doubt on the entire marriage contract, potentially invalidating the transfer of lands and creating a catastrophic political incident. Your entire value in this moment is reduced to the physical state of your body. They inspect the sheets. There is a moment of tense silence. Then your mother-in-law gives a curt, satisfied nod. She turns to your mother, and for the first time, a small, thin smile touches her lips. It is a smile of relief. The bargain is sound. The goods were delivered as advertised. Your mother, in turn, looks relieved. Her duty is done. She has successfully raised and delivered a valuable, unspoiled daughter. You feel a hot flush of shame, a deep, burning humiliation that they are examining your body's most private evidence as if they were merchants checking the quality of a bolt of cloth. One of the maids is instructed to take the sheet. It will be shown discreetly to your father and your father-in-law, the final proof, the ultimate receipt. Only then will the groom's family formally accept you. Only then will the celebration be truly complete. The women help you from the bed and bring you a basin of water to wash. Their demeanor is different now. The tension is gone, replaced by a kind of brisk, businesslike acceptance. You have passed the test. You have fulfilled your primary function. You are now officially one of them. As you dress in a simple gown, you feel a strange sort of emptiness. The terror of the night has passed, replaced by a cold, clear understanding of your new reality. You are no longer your father's daughter. You are this man's wife. Your body is not your own. It is a vessel for the continuation of his bloodline. Your life is no longer yours to shape. It is a path of duty laid out before you in stone. You have survived your wedding night, and now the rest of your life, a long, unending series of days just like this one, begins. As our journey through the stark reality of a noble medieval wedding concludes tonight, we're reminded that the past is far from dusty and dull. It's a vibrant, often surprising, and always intriguing tapestry woven with human ingenuity, resilience, and the occasional ancient mystery that still makes us wonder. This is The Sleeping Archaeologist, encouraging you to remain curious about the incredible tales still waiting to be discovered beneath our feet. It could be a mole you've had your entire life, a freckle, a scar from a childhood fall, any small imperfection on your skin. He begins his examination. You are forced to stand, to turn, to bend, to expose every inch of your body to his cold, clinical gaze. He inspects you like a butcher inspecting a piece of meat. He pokes and prods with his fingers, searching for any abnormality. The humiliation is a constant burning fire. You feel disembodied, as if you are floating near the ceiling, watching this happen to someone else. He finds a small brown mole on your shoulder blade. "Here," he says, his voice tinged with the satisfaction of a craftsman finding a flaw in a piece of wood. He selects a long, thin needle from his kit. He instructs Ulrich to hold you still. You brace yourself, clenching your teeth. The needle goes in. The pain is sharp, a bright, searing point of agony. You cry out, and a tiny bead of red blood wells up on your skin. The witchfinder scowls. This is not the result he wanted. He moves on. He finds another spot, a small scar on your thigh. He pricks it. Again you flinch in pain. Again you bleed. You feel a tiny, desperate flicker of hope. This is proof, isn't it? You are not insensible to pain. You are human. But the witchfinder is not so easily deterred. He has a reputation to uphold and a fee to collect. He knows, as do many in his profession, that a guaranteed result is often required. He pulls out another needle, one with a polished wooden handle. What you don't know, what you cannot possibly see, is that this needle is a trick. It has a hollow handle and a spring mechanism. When pressed against the skin, the sharp point retracts harmlessly into the shaft. It is a tool not of investigation, but of deception, a piece of stage magic for a deadly performance. He finds a nearly invisible freckle on your back, a place you cannot see. "A subtle mark," he mutters, impressed by the devil's supposed cunning. He presses the trick needle against your skin. You feel the pressure, but no pain. He withdraws it. "See?" he announces to the room. She does not flinch. He shows the needle to the magistrate, and not a drop of blood. It's a lie, a performance for the benefit of the court. The magistrate nods grimly, making a note on a piece of parchment. The evidence is beginning to accumulate. Your body, your own skin and blood, is being made to testify against you. The hope you felt just moments before curdles into pure, cold terror. You realize the truth is irrelevant here. This isn't a search for evidence, it's a manufacturing process, and you are the raw material, but the worst, most intimate violation is yet to come. The search for the devil's mark was a prelude. The main event, according to the grim expertise of the witchfinder, is the hunt for something even more damning, the witch's teat. The scholars and inquisitors who wrote the manuals believed that every witch possessed a small, unnatural protuberance on her body. It was an extra nipple, they claimed, used to suckle demonic familiars, imps, cats, toads, with her own blood. It was considered the most intimate and definitive sign of her pact with Satan. And with a convenience that speaks volumes about the minds of these men, they believed this teat was most often hidden in the most private parts of a woman's body. The witchfinder instructs the men to lay you down on a wooden table. The rough, splintery wood presses into your shorn scalp and bare back. You are exposed, vulnerable, utterly powerless under the flat, grey light of the high window. He approaches, his face a mask of professional concentration. What follows is not an examination. It is a methodical, brutal assault disguised as a forensic procedure. He probes and searches every fold and crevice of your body with his fingers, then with cold metal instruments. He is looking for anything, a skin tag, a hemorrhoid, a swollen gland, that he can present to the court as an unnatural appendage. The pain is secondary to the profound, soul-crushing humiliation. You are no longer a person, you are an object, a piece of anatomy to be inspected. You close your eyes, trying to retreat into the darkness of your own mind, but there is no escape. This is happening. It is real. The clinical detachment of the men makes it even more surreal, more terrifying. They speak in low tones, discussing what they see or what they want to see, as if you are not there. "Is this it?" one asks, pointing. The witchfinder leans in for a closer look, his breath on your skin. "Perhaps," he says, "but the devil is known for his subtlety. This grotesque violation can go on for an hour or more. It is a form of torture all its own, designed to shatter your spirit as much as to find evidence. And of course, they eventually find what they are looking for. Or rather, they decide that something they have found will serve the purpose. A small, harmless skin tag, an anomaly that has been on your body for years, is declared to be the infernal teat." The magistrate makes another solemn note. The case against you is now, in their eyes, airtight. You have been shaved, pricked, and intimately violated, and through it all, they have found exactly what they set out to find. It's a perfect, self-fulfilling system. But sometimes, even this is not enough. Sometimes a community demands a more public spectacle, or perhaps the magistrate, for all his procedural coldness, feels a flicker of doubt. For these situations, there is the ordeal by water, the swimming test. It is presented as a way of letting God himself render a verdict. The logic is simple and brutal. Water, as the element of baptism, is pure. It will reject anything unholy. Therefore, an innocent person, favored by God, will sink. A witch in league with the devil will be rejected by the water and will float. You are led from the magistrate's office, blinking in the sudden daylight. A crowd has gathered, your neighbors, the ones who used to borrow flour from you, the ones whose children you watched grow. They are here for the show. They escort you to the river at the edge of town. The water is grey and cold, moving sluggishly beneath the overhanging trees. They bind you. Your right thumb is tied tightly to your left big toe, your left thumb to your right big toe. This hog tie position contorts your body, making it impossible to swim. A rope is tied around your waist, the other end held by a man on the bank. This is their one concession to fairness. If you sink, they will try to pull you out before you drown. Try is the operative word. Many an innocent woman has been cleared of all charges only to be pulled from the river a few minutes too late, her lungs full of water. A posthumous exoneration is a small comfort. You are shoved from the bank. The shock of the icy water is a violent explosion against your skin. It steals your breath. You thrash, but your bound limbs are useless. You sink beneath the surface into a world of murky green silence. Panic seizes you. Your lungs are on fire. You struggle against the ropes, a primal animal need for air overriding everything else. And then something strange happens. Your wool skirt and shift, full of air, billow around you like a bladder. The contorted position of your body creates a pocket of buoyancy. You stop sinking. Slowly, against all logic, you begin to rise back to the surface. Your head breaks the water. You gasp for air, choking on river water. And you hear the crowd, a low murmur at first, then a collective gasp, then a roar of condemnation. You are floating, you are floating. To them it is not physics, it is not the air trapped in your clothes. It is proof the holy water has rejected you. God himself has declared you a witch. As they haul you, sputtering and shivering, back to the bank, You see it in their faces, the certainty, the fear, the righteousness. You have failed the test by passing it. In this world turned upside down, your own survival has just become your death sentence. Back in your cell, shivering and soaked, the magistrate visits you again. His tone is different now. It is no longer one of patient inquiry. It is one of grim finality. The evidence is overwhelming, he says, standing outside your cell. God himself has testified against you, yet you remain stubborn. He tells you that your unrepentant soul is in mortal peril. But there is still one last path to mercy, one final procedure. He calls it the question. This is the final stage, formal, judicially sanctioned torture. It is not done out of anger or sadism, or so they tell themselves. It is a legal tool meticulously regulated to extract a confession when all other methods have failed. The theory is that while a witch's body may be hardened against lesser pains by demonic power, no human being, no matter how much help they get from the devil, can withstand the highest applications of pain. The pain, they believe, will shatter the demonic spell and allow the truth to emerge. You are taken to the cellar beneath the magistrate's office. The air is thick with the smell of mold and something else, something metallic and sharp, like old blood. The room is lit by a single torch, casting long, dancing shadows. Against the wall are the instruments. You see the strappado, a rope and pulley system used to dislocate the shoulders. You see the leg screws, vicious-looking vices designed to crush the bones of the shins. You see a chair covered in spikes. This is not a scene of chaotic brutality. Each tool has a name, a function, and rules governing its use, how long it can be applied, how many times the procedure can be repeated. It is the logic of the system taken to its most horrific conclusion. The magistrate reads the formal order authorizing the use of torture. He asks you one last time to confess, to name your accomplices, to describe your pact with the devil. Who else was at the Sabbat with you? He may even suggest names. Was it Frau Schmidt? We know her pig died. Was it the young Elsbeth? She has been seen gathering herbs in the woods. He is offering you a deal. Your pain can end if you are willing to inflict it upon others. This is the final cruel choice. You are exhausted, terrified, and in pain. Your spirit is worn down to a raw nerve. You can hold on to your integrity, to the truth that you are innocent, and in doing so, you will be subjected to unimaginable agony. Or you can give them what they want. You can confess to impossible crimes. You can name your neighbors, people who may be just as innocent as you are, pulling them into this nightmare with you. A confession might earn you the mercy of a quicker death. Continued denial guarantees a slow, agonizing one, followed by the same execution anyway. What do? Do you invent a story of flying on a broomstick, of kissing the devil's rump, of dancing naked in the woods? Do you sacrifice another woman to save yourself a few more hours of torture? Or do you remain silent, clinging to the last shred of your identity, your innocence, even as they tie your hands behind your back and attach the rope of the strappado? There is no right answer. There is no good choice. There is only a spectrum of horror. The system is designed to leave you with no way out. It is a machine built to produce one thing, a confession. And in the end, one way or another, it almost always gets what it wants. Your voice, whether screaming in denial or whispering a false confession, will be the final piece of evidence they need to justify their actions. The trial itself is a piece of theatre. It is a foregone conclusion. You are brought before a tribunal of local dignitaries. The magistrate, Herr Richter, presents the case against you. He reads from his notes with a steady, administrative voice. He lists the evidence, the testimony of your neighbors about the dead pig and the curdled milk, the discovery of the devil's mark on your back which did not bleed or cause you pain, the location of the unnatural teat on your body, and the fact that the holy river rejected you. And then the centerpiece of his case, your own confession, extracted under duress in the cellar. It doesn't matter if you try to recant. The court will be told that the devil is speaking through you, trying to undo the good work of the interrogators. Your denials are merely further proof of your guilt. You look out at the faces in the room. They are not monsters. They are town councilmen, guildmasters, landowners. They are ordinary men convinced they are doing God's work, protecting their community from a terrible, insidious evil. They are following the law. They are adhering to the procedures laid out in their books. In their minds, they are the heroes of this story. The verdict is delivered without fanfare. Guilty. The sentence is death by fire, the prescribed punishment for heresy and witchcraft in this part of the world. You are to be burned in the town square as a warning to all others who might stray from the path of righteousness. You are led back to your cell for the last time. There is a strange quiet that descends upon you. The fear is still there, a cold, hard stone in your gut, but the frantic terror has subsided. There are no more choices to make, no more tests to endure. The machine has finished its work. On the day of the execution, they give you a coarse linen shift to wear. The priest comes to hear your final confession, to offer one last chance for your soul. He urges you to repent, to go to your death with a clean conscience. The irony is a bitter taste in your mouth. They have destroyed your body, your name, and your life, all in the name of saving your soul. You are led out into the square. It is filled with people. The entire village is there, and people from the surrounding countryside have come to watch. It is a public holiday, a civic event. Children are perched on their father's shoulders for a better view. In the center of the square is the pyre, a stake surrounded by a carefully constructed pile of wood and kindling. It looks so mundane, so practical. They lead you to it and chain you to the stake. The executioner, a man paid by the town for his services, arranges the wood around your feet. He is a professional, efficient and impersonal. To him, this is just a job. The magistrate reads your sentence aloud for all to hear, listing your crimes against God and community. A torch is lit. As the flames begin to lick at the dry kindling at your feet, you look out at the crowd one last time. You see your neighbors. Frau Schmidt, whose face is a mask of grim satisfaction. Young Ulrich, the constable, who stands at the back, his face pale, unable to watch. You see the faces of people you have known your entire life, twisted by fear and a strange celebratory fervor. They are not witnessing an act of murder, they are witnessing an act of purification, a cleansing of their community. In your death, they find a temporary relief from their own anxieties. Your ashes will fertilize the ground of their certainty. The smoke that rises from your body will be for them the sweet smell of justice being served. As our journey through the brutal logic of the Witchfinder's manuals concludes tonight, we're reminded that the past is far from dusty and dull. It's a vibrant, often surprising and always intriguing tapestry woven with human ingenuity, resilience, and the occasional ancient mystery that still makes us wonder. The architects of this terror weren't just superstitious fanatics, they were lawyers, scholars, and bureaucrats who created a system so perfectly circular in its logic that it was nearly impossible to escape. It was a system that codified misogyny into law and turned fear into a weapon of social control, leaving behind a paper trail of justice that serves as a chilling reminder of how easily the pursuit of purity can become a license for persecution. This is the Sleeping Archaeologist, encouraging you to remain curious about the incredible tales still waiting to be discovered beneath our feet. Our next story is entitled The Witchfinder's Secret. When justice became a brutal form of torture, we have this persistent image of the great European witch hunts, don't we? It's usually a scene of pure, unadulterated hysteria. A torch-wielding mob of superstitious peasants whipped into a frenzy by a wild-eyed priest chasing some poor old woman through the woods. We see it as a moment of collective madness, a bizarre temporary fever that gripped the pre-modern world before the cool, clean rationality of the Enlightenment came along and administered a societal aspirin. It was a tragic but ultimately simple story of religious fervor gone wrong, a people so devout they accidentally became monstrous in their quest to root out evil. It's a neat, tidy explanation. It allows us to look back from our comfortable, well-lit present and see them as simply misguided. And it's a comforting lie, because the truth is so much colder, so much more organized, and infinitely more disturbing. The witch hunts weren't just a spontaneous wildfire of peasant superstition. For the people in charge, the magistrates, the inquisitors, the professional witchfinders, it was a slow, methodical, bureaucratic process. It was less like a riot and more like the most terrifying audit you could possibly imagine, conducted by people who believed the devil was a master of fine print and legal loopholes. It wasn't a quest for spiritual purity. It was a calculated exertion of power, a deeply political act of social cleansing, and, at its dark heart, a viciously misogynistic campaign to control women, their bodies, their knowledge, and their autonomy, all under the unassailable guise of religious justice. This wasn't chaos, this was a system. Tonight, you are a target of that system. The year is 1628, the place a small, damp, fearful village in the heart of the Holy Roman Empire, a place that will soon be infamous for its pyres. You aren't a crone bent over a cauldron, cackling into the night. You aren't in league with Satan. You barely have time to keep your own small garden in league with the sun and the rain. You are a widow, 47 years old. You own your cottage and the patch of land it sits on, a legacy from your late husband. You know which herbs can quiet a cough and which poultice will draw the poison from a wound. You can help a mother through a difficult birth. You are, in short, a woman who has managed to survive and even quietly thrive without the direct supervision of a man. And in this time and place, that kind of competence is not a virtue, it's a suspicion. The proof of this chillingly organized campaign isn't buried in the ground. You can't find it with a trowel and a brush. The key artifacts are sitting on shelves in libraries and archives. They are books. Specifically, a book published in 1487 called the Malleus Maleficarum, or the Hammer of Witches. Think of it less as a dusty old religious text, and more as a field manual for interrogators, a best-selling how-to guide for identifying, prosecuting, and executing witches. It's the ultimate set of receipts for centuries of state-sanctioned murder. It's written not with frothing fanaticism, but with the cold, detached language of a legal scholar and a bureaucrat, laying out precise procedures for torture and providing theological justifications for the most grotesque acts of violence. It's a book that argues with perfect scholastic logic that women are inherently more carnal, more credulous, and more impressionable than men, and therefore naturally inclined to fall into the devil's service. It is the undeniable Incan vellum proof that the system was not just broken, it was built that way from the ground up. This discovery, made not in a single dig but through the careful study of these procedural documents from late 15th century Germany, reveals something extraordinary about the weaponization of fear. As we settle in tonight, we're going to uncover not just what these witchfinders wrote, but what it tells us about the surprisingly orderly and terrifyingly logical lives and deaths of people who lived in early modern Europe. Now dim the lights and prepare to discover why this story will change how you think about the witch trials. Your day begins not with an incantation, but with the familiar ache in your lower back. The mornings are cold, and the damp from the thatched roof seems to seep directly into your bones. Before the sun has fully cleared the trees, you are already up. There is wood to fetch for the small hearth, water to draw from the village well, and the goat to milk. Your cottage is small, just 2 rooms, but it is yours. The main room smells of wood smoke, dried herbs hanging from the rafters, and the faint, earthy scent of the goat, who sometimes shelters in the corner on the coldest nights. This is the scent of your life, the mundane reality that will soon be twisted into something sinister. You live on the edge of the village, not by choice, but because this is where your husband's land was. It affords you a degree of privacy that is both a comfort and a curse. You can work in your garden without the constant observation of your neighbors, but your solitude is also noted. When you walk to the well, the chatter of the other women sometimes quiets as you approach. They are not unkind, not yet, but there is a distance. You are an anomaly, a woman of property without a man, a woman who knows things. You know that foxglove in the right measure can steady a frantic heart, but too much will stop it completely. You know that the willow bark tea can ease a fever. This is knowledge passed down from your mother and her mother before her. It was once seen as a blessing, a form of community care. Now, in this age of anxiety, it feels like a dangerous secret. The world outside your cottage is humming with a low-grade fear. The past few harvests have been poor. A strange sickness took 2 children last winter. The 30 Years' War rages somewhere to the south, a conflict of kings and faiths that feels distant until the day a tax collector with a hard face and a short temper comes to town, demanding more than anyone can give. In times like these, people need answers. They need a reason for their suffering. It is far easier to blame a sour-faced widow down the lane than it is to blame a changing climate, a distant war, or the simple, cruel randomness of fate. God is good, the priest tells you all every Sunday. So if your cow sickens and dies, if your child is born with a club foot, if your bread fails to rise, it cannot be God's will. It must be a perversion of it. It must be malice. It must be witchcraft. You have noticed the small signs, the way a conversation stops when you enter the baker's shop, the way a neighbor makes a sign to ward off evil when you pass. Last week, Frau Schmidt's prize pig, a creature of legendary girth and foul temper, dropped dead in its sty. You had walked past her farm that morning. You had even commented on the fine weather. Now you hear the whispers that you looked at the pig with an evil eye. It's absurd. You have a hard time mustering an evil eye for the tax collector, let alone a pig. But absurdity is no defense. The gossip is like a spark in a dry barn. It spreads faster than you can imagine, a phantom version of you taking shape in the minds of your neighbors, a spiteful, secretive creature who consorts with demons in the woods at night. This phantom you is far more interesting than the real you, the one whose greatest nightly excitement is darning a sock without stabbing herself in the thumb. You try to ignore it. You keep to yourself, you offer polite greetings, you hope it will pass. You remind yourself that these are your neighbors, people you have known your whole life. You helped deliver some of their children. You shared bread with them in leaner times. Surely they know who you are. But fear is a powerful corrosive. It eats away at memory, at loyalty, at common sense. And the fear in this village is palpable. It hangs in the air with the wood smoke, a constant choking presence. Every misfortune, no matter how small, becomes another piece of evidence, another log on a pyre that is being built for you in the town square of their minds. You don't know it yet. But your trial has already begun. The verdict is just waiting for the formality of an accusation, and that formality is coming much sooner than you think. You just can't imagine what happens next, what it truly means when the organized procedural face of this terror turns its gaze directly upon you. The knock on your door does not come in the dead of night. There is no drama, no shouting, no torches. It comes in the flat grey light of late afternoon, a time for mending clothes or weeding the garden. It's a firm, official-sounding knock, not the familiar rap of a neighbour. When you open the door, two men are standing there. One is the local constable, a man named Ulrich, whose son you treated for a fever just last year. He won't meet your eyes. The other is a stranger, a man with a severe black coat and a face that looks like it was carved from a block of wood and left out in the rain. He carries a leather satchel and an air of immense, weary importance. He is the one who speaks. His voice is calm, devoid of emotion. He informs you that a complaint has been lodged, a formal accusation of witchcraft. He says your name as if it's a line item on an inventory of goods. You are to come with them. You start to protest, to ask who accused you, what the charge is based on. But the man in black simply holds up a hand. All will be explained in due course, he says. Procedure must be followed. It's that word, procedure, that chills you more than anything. This isn't anger, this is administration. Ulrich, the constable, finally looks at you. A flicker of something, pity, fear, in his eyes. He mumbles an apology as he ties your wrists in front of you with a rough rope. The rope bites into your skin. As they lead you from your cottage, you see your neighbors. They are watching from their windows, from behind their fences. No one shouts, no one throws a stone. They just watch, their faces a mixture of fear and a grim, terrible relief. The scapegoat has been identified. For a little while at least, they are safe. You are not taken to a dungeon deep beneath a castle. That's for stories. You are taken to the town's small jail, a single stone room at the back of the magistrate's office, a place normally reserved for drunks and petty thieves. The door is thick oak with a small barred window. The smell hits you first, stale sweat, unwashed bodies, despair. The room is cold, the stone floor damp and strewn with filthy straw. There is a single wooden bucket in the corner. This will be your home now. There is no ceremony to it. They push you inside, untie your hands, and bolt the door. The sound of the heavy bolt sliding home is the sound of your old life ending. You sit on the straw, the cold seeping through your wool skirt. Your mind races, trying to make sense of the impossible. Frau Schmidt and her pig. Young Elspeth, whose courtship you advised against because the boy was a known brute. Who holds a grudge so deep they would do this? But you soon realize that a specific grudge isn't even necessary. You are simply the most logical candidate. You fit the profile described in the books the magistrates study, the sermons the priests preach. You are a woman alone, a woman with knowledge, a woman who is an easy explanation for a world full of difficult questions. Hours pass, or maybe it's minutes. Time becomes a thick, slow-moving liquid in the darkness. Finally, the bolt scrapes again. It's not the man in black, it's the magistrate himself, a man named Herr Richter. He's a civic leader, a man of standing. He doesn't look like a monster. He looks like a tired administrator with too much paperwork. He carries a stool and a lantern, placing them just outside the reach of your cell. He tells you his purpose is not to punish you, but to save you. Your body may be forfeit, he explains in a reasonable tone, but your immortal soul can still be cleansed. All you must do is confess. Confess to what? You ask, your voice a croak. He sighs as if you're a difficult child. To your pact with the evil one, to the sabbats in the woods, to the blighting of crops and the sickening of livestock. We know you are guilty, we have testimony. A confession will simply expedite the process. It will be a mercy. His mercy is a quicker death. You know this. A repentant witch might be granted the kindness of being strangled before the flames are lit. An unrepentant one will be burned alive. This is the choice he is offering you. You deny everything, of course. You tell him about your life, your herbs, your husband. You plead. He listens patiently, with a look of profound disappointment. He says he had hoped you would make this easy on yourself, and on him. He says that the devil is cunning and has hardened your heart against the truth. But there are ways, he assures you, to break the devil's hold. There are procedures. He leaves and you are alone again in the dark. But now the darkness is filled with a new and specific dread. He didn't threaten you with random violence. He threatened you with a process, a series of steps, methodical and sanctioned, designed to strip away your lies until only the truth, his truth, remains. You lie back in the straw, the filth and the cold forgotten, and you listen to the beating of your own heart. You have no idea what these procedures are, but you understand one thing with perfect, chilling clarity. Your body is now a crime scene, and they are about to begin the investigation. The next day they come for you. It's not the magistrate this time, it is Ulrich and two other men you don't recognize. Their faces are grim and determined. They are here to begin the tests, the physical examination that will provide the court with its hard evidence. They lead you from your cell into an adjacent room. It's larger, with a high ceiling and a single grime-covered window that lets in a weak, unforgiving light. In the center of the room is a wooden stool. You are told to remove your clothes. Every instinct in you screams no. The shame is a physical blow, a hot, sickening wave that rises from your stomach. In your world, a woman's modesty is paramount. To be seen naked by men who are not your husband is a violation beyond words. But you have no choice. Your refusal would be taken as proof of guilt, a sign that you have something to hide. Slowly, your fingers trembling, you untie the laces of your bodice. You remove your dress, your shift, your stockings, until you are standing naked and shivering on the cold stone floor, your arms crossed over your chest in a futile attempt to preserve some sliver of dignity. One of the men produces a razor. He explains in a flat, monotone voice that any charms or amulets given to you by the devil must be found and removed. And the devil, he says, is clever enough to hide them in the hair. They force you onto the stool. One man holds your head steady, while the other begins to shave your scalp. The cold metal scrapes against your skin. Your hair, which you have braided and pinned every morning of your adult life, falls to the floor in pathetic clumps. They are not gentle. They shave your entire head, then your eyebrows. Then they move on to the rest of your body, shaving every last bit of hair from your armpits, your legs, your pubic region. The act is methodical, impersonal, and utterly violating. You are being unmade, shorn like a sheep for slaughter, reduced from a person to a blank canvas of flesh, upon which they will now search for the devil's signature. When they are finished, the specialist is brought in. This is the man in the severe black coat you saw at your door. He is a Hexen suture, a professional witch finder. This is his trade. He travels from town to town, hired by local authorities to apply his expertise. He carries a small leather roll which he now unfurls on a nearby table. It contains his tools, a collection of long, slender needles and bodkins of varying lengths and thicknesses. He is here to find the stigma diabolicum, the devil's mark. He explains the theology of it to the magistrate who has entered to observe. The book, the Malleus Maleficarum, teaches that when a witch makes her pact, the devil seals it with a mark, a spot on the body that becomes insensible to pain and will not bleed when pricked.